Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and in today's video, we're going to be discussing an event that's coming up on Bitcoin that, based on historical analysis, should cause a Bitcoin bull run of monumental proportions. Of course, guys, we are talking about none other than the Bitcoin halving. As you can see, there's just a little over 100 days before Bitcoin's block reward is cut from 12.5 Bitcoin per block mined down to 6.25. And that might not seem like a big deal unless you've studied this, but I promise you guys, this is significant. We're going to be discussing it in today's video because, guys, as you can see on the BLX chart, the last two times that Bitcoin had a halving, a pretty major rally tended to ensue. And now we have another one coming up in about 3 months. We're going to be discussing the significance of the Bitcoin halving in today's video, but we're also going to discuss this technical landscape around Bitcoin to try and get an idea of where Bitcoin will be when that halving comes so that we can tell if Bitcoin is going to have a major rally or trade sideways through the halving. We're going to be discussing all of that and more in today's video, guys. So if you do enjoy today's video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps out the channel when you do that, but without much further ado, let's go ahead and dive right on into it. Bitcoin mining, the foundation of the cryptocurrency space, allowing for Bitcoin price action, the entire ecosystem to exist, and for me to sit behind my computer screen and pretend like I have a real job. Anyway, Bitcoin mining is a very, very important concept because if Bitcoins are not being mined, then Bitcoin transactions are not going through and the entire cryptocurrency grinds to a halt. Luckily, there are systems in place to ensure that doesn't happen. One of them is the block reward, the amount of Bitcoin that is rewarded to a miner when a block is mined. Now, this is a little bit rudimentary. If you guys are more advanced in the cryptocurrency space and you already know what I'm talking about, it's the amount of Bitcoin that is given to a miner when they mine a block. It's called the block reward because they're rewarded for mining it. It's what allows for the cryptocurrency economy to exist in the first place. But of course, that can't keep going on forever. We can't have the exact same amount of Bitcoins being produced every single time a block is mined because that would cause a steady inflation in the cryptocurrency space. So instead of that happening, there is a block reward happening every 4 years, which limits the amount of Bitcoin that will ever be produced to around 21 million. Okay, basics out of the way. Let's get into the actual meat and potatoes of the video. Historically, as you can see, when Bitcoin halvings happen, one of them happened in November of 12 and one of them happened in July of 16, a rally normally ensues. I'm not talking about any rally. I'm not talking about your grandmother's rally. I'm talking about a pretty major one. As you can see right here, this one resulted in a 3,000% return, and this one over here resulted in a 9,000% return. That is most certainly significant. It just so happens that halvings tend to occur right before the beginning or during the beginning of a Bitcoin bull run, and I think we would all agree that Bitcoin in the longer term time frame for the last 12 months or so is roughly at the beginning of a bull market and trying to get back to all-time high and beyond. Now we have a halving coming up in just a little over 3 months. What does that do for price action? In simple terms, it's a very good thing for price action. The reason for that being that when that block reward is cut in half, that causes the stock-to-flow ratio to go up, which increases the underlying intrinsic value of Bitcoin, and people generally see, looking into history, that when a halving happens, Bitcoin rallies, so they expect the same thing to happen. It's normally a very bullish thing for the cryptocurrency market. Here's another reason why Bitcoin's very bullish that a lot of you guys have probably not thought about. How long was the previous bear market? I'm not talking about 2018. I'm talking about 2014. I think if we measure here, it would be about 414 days from the top to the very bottom. And then on top of that, we had an accumulation phase that lasted several hundred days. So from the top of the market to the end of the accumulation phase was about 650 days. The previous bull market that we were just in, from the top to the bottom of the accumulation phase before the next bull market started, was about 415 days, which means that our previous bull market and accumulation cycle lasted as long as the bear market did previous. That's why we've had so much more time to be bullish right here before the next halving comes, is because Bitcoin had a shorter bear market and accumulation cycle. Now, of course, that's coming back to bite us in a longer term downtrend here, but in general, Bitcoin is still at the beginning of a bull market and trying to rally to the upside. This halving is going to help that significantly. As you guys will probably know from the video that we did recently, the stock to flow ratio also predicts an upwards of $100,000 Bitcoin 18 months from now, with Bitcoin having its halving happen here in about May. And guys, it's also not just about the halving, it's about the news around it, because people see that Bitcoin has rallies in bull markets following a halving. Not necessarily immediately. I want to point this out to you. Back over here in 2016, when Bitcoin had its halving, nothing happened immediately. It doesn't happen overnight. In fact, we had a pretty major crash here of about 25% pretty soon after the halving happened. Almost immediately, actually. The halving was closer to the end of July. Bitcoin had a pretty big crash immediately after the halving. Why is that? Well, guys, Bitcoin halvings are well-anticipated events. People know they're coming, so what that means is that people are generally going to be buying up Bitcoin in anticipation of them, and after it happens and Bitcoin trades sideways for 3 days and nothing happens, people are going to sell because they're like, okay, the halving's over. And what they do is that they think that rally is said and done with and the halving had no impact pullback, but it did. It was just longer term and they didn't realize it. There's probably going to be a pullback almost immediately after the halving comes through. That's not a bad thing. That's actually perfectly fine. It's actually relatively normal. What happens when a halving comes through is that it's traditionally seen as the confirmation of a new bull market. We're already getting back into bull market territory, and the halving is going to increase that. So with that in mind, what does the halving actually do for price action? Well, I think based on everything that we've said, it's obvious that it's going to cause a rally in price action, but where will Bitcoin be and how will Bitcoin be reacting to its technical landscape when we actually get to that halving? Well, guys, as you know, Bitcoin is very bullish right now. We're looking at a bullish MACD cross, the likes of which we hadn't seen in about a year. The last time we saw one was in February of 19, and that kicked off a pretty major rally, I think we can all agree, and we've just seen the same thing happen here. There's almost no doubt that Bitcoin is about to have a significant rally to the upside because of that bullish MACD cross. Now, as you know, I've talked about the potential of some short-term corrections, and I've talked about how we need to be careful about getting too bullish. That I stand by, but I think it's also pretty hard to deny that Bitcoin's about to have a pretty major rally here moving into the next few months, moving up towards that halving, which means that when the halving comes, Bitcoin's probably going to be sitting up here between like $11,000 and $14,000. I've got a feeling Bitcoin's going to be sitting up here somewhere in the penthouse, and when that halving comes through, Bitcoin could fall. That's a very likely scenario, or Bitcoin could rally. We've only really had 2 major halvings in the history of Bitcoin. It's hard to tell based off of historical analysis, but there is definitely precedent for rallies and corrections in the short and the long term when a halving comes. But it's not even just about short-term technical analysis, guys. When the halving comes, we have several more years until the top of that market. Stock to flow predicts $100,000 Bitcoin, which is up here somewhere, and by the way, we're on the log chart, and if you guys will remember to the previous bull market, the stock to flow ratio was only predicting a $5,600 Bitcoin. Bitcoin ran to 20 grand, which means that stock to flow is predicting roughly around a $200,000 to $400,000 Bitcoin based on that historical analysis over the next several years. Now, with that said, a $200,000 to $400,000 Bitcoin would cost trillions of dollars in market capitalization. That's probably not going to happen, but a high 5 figures, low 6-figure Bitcoin is most certainly possible because of this happening moving into the next 3 years or so. As this bull market starts to pick up more steam, we start getting more mainstream media attention, more adoption, more regulatory clarity, and more people start getting on board with the cryptocurrency revolution. Guys, I think what's really important is that we remember how early on we are here in this space and just how much development there is to go. A lot of people are expecting, a lot of people are getting upset that, hey, Bitcoin hasn't gone to the moon yet, or Bitcoin hasn't rallied as much as I wanted to yet. Look, Bitcoin is just over 11 years old. We turned 11, 3.5 weeks ago. Guys, Bitcoin is barely out of middle school, and we're expecting it to be a millionaire by now. Bitcoin has room to grow. There's a lot that needs to be developed in the cryptocurrency space. I don't think any of us would be here if we didn't believe that in the long term, there was a very, very good outlook for the space. We just need patience. As I've always said, the key word is patience. The halving is going to come. It's going to cause a rally in Bitcoin. There's going to be an increase in the value of Bitcoin. A bull market is going to start and continue and rally and go higher, and that is going to be a very good thing for both the Bitcoin market and, of course, for us as well. Guys, this video was mostly for people who weren't really aware of what the halving was. We're going to do some more shorter term analysis in tomorrow's video, so make sure you subscribe for that. And also, if you're interested in more news about the halving and stock to flow ratios, on the end screen there will be a video linking to our video that we did on the stock to flow ratio 3 or 4 days ago and how it predicts $100,000 Bitcoin in the next 2.5 to 3 years. But anyway, guys, I have quite the day ahead of me, so we're going to have to go ahead and wrap out the video. But before I go, I do first want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.
Oh, I got a real good feeling.